They keep us informed about local and international news. They promote business and keep the businessman in touch with the economy. They are entertaining and sometimes a vital tool in times of need. Unlike television and radio news, newspapers can go into more detail. They tell us how and why things are happening. Newspapers are convenient. They can be read anywhere. This is yesterday's newspaper, and this is today's. The process of actually making up your daily paper involves many people. But before any of this can happen, one basic ingredient is needed: newsprint. In New Zealand, newsprint is manufactured at the Tasman Pulp and Paper Company at Wairarapa in the Bay of Plenty. About 2 million tonnes of logs are sent to Wairarapa each year from the forests of the central North Island. Every day, about 1,000 tonnes of newsprint is made. That's about enough to form a paper road 7 metres wide, stretching twice the length of New Zealand. One-third of newsprint sold in New Zealand is recycled. Old newspapers can be repulped to make things such as corrugated cardboard, egg cartons and fruit trays. Being a regional newspaper, the Wairarapa Times Age features a lot of local news. News articles, which make up to half of the newspaper's content, come from a variety of sources. Local items are handled by staff reporters and photographers. It is the editor's job to supervise the flavour of the finished edition. He is responsible for the quality of the writing and general layout. Most national and international news filters in by computer link. Items that can be used are sorted into trays and then assessed by the editor. He decides what will be used and if articles will be shortened. He also gives his direction to which page each article will go. The chief reporter is in charge of reporters and photographers. He's the one who sends them out on jobs. An assignment could be anything from hard news like a fire to community news like a school gala. The chief must be alert to local events to ensure that anything of interest is not missed. On top of that, he has his own assignments to write. It's early morning. The sub-editors begin to make up some of the pages of today's edition. Advertising space has already been mapped out, so the subs know exactly how much space remains for editorial and photos. Articles are sorted and checked for grammar and spelling mistakes. Soft news items have already been placed, but it's too early to fill the hard news spaces. The morning deadline at the Wairarapa Times Age is 11:45. Reporters, sub-editors and many others must work together to have the paper ready for printing by that time. This morning an interesting story has developed locally. Due to a landslip, a small valley near Masterton became flooded for several weeks. It created a massive lake. Our reporter is told that the gradual build-up of pressure on the slip finally caused the lake to burst, leaving this ugly, silt-ridden landscape. A few final pictures before rushing back to base. We'll catch up with this story later on. Newspapers can't survive on income from sales alone. They rely on display advertising. Daily newspapers are the largest advertising medium in New Zealand, with advertisers spending over $400 million each year. The advertising representative is the personal link between reader and advertiser. The responsibility to maintain the newspaper's main income from advertising rests heavily upon their shoulders. Their job involves a lot of footwork. A personal visit allows clients to make suggestions or alterations to their advertisements. Most artwork is ready-made. It comes in thick catalogues, but there's always a need for a resident professional. Jim Field is the full-time artist at the Times Age. He is perhaps best known to many as the man behind Bill Goody. Cartooning is really a sideline, since the advertising department often need him to create original artwork for their ads. Jim is sometimes contracted out to paint promotional displays on shop windows. His talent for signwriting is also in demand. Another form of advertising revenue is the classified ads. It's a cheap way to communicate with thousands of people at any one time. By now, some of the news articles that will appear in today's paper have been passed on to the typesetters. Here, typed and handwritten copy is converted into newsprint columns. Different styles and sizes of lettering can be selected from the keyboard. Proofreaders check for mistakes. If any are found, copy is sent back to the typesetters for correction. Our reporter, meanwhile, puts the finishing touches to his story. He transforms his notes into a clear, accurate and easy-to-read article. The editor has decided to feature the lake story on the front page. As deadline approaches, the photographer is under pressure to supply her photos on time. As she says, there's more to being a press photographer than just snapping pictures. Now, the editor has to decide which photos to use. It's important to have a good selection, and therefore not unusual for a photographer to use up a whole roll of film on one story. The composing room, where everything comes together. Advertisements, editorial and photographs all arrive here for pasting up. Molten wax is used to coat the reverse side, allowing sections to stick to the layout. It also allows repositioning if necessary. As each completed page is given the OK, they are sent to the camera room, where they are transferred onto a negative film. Each page is carefully checked and touched up for neatness. In order to run on the press, the negative images have to be transferred onto specially prepared aluminium sheets. These sheets are coated with a light sensitive surface. By placing the negative over the sheet and exposing to a very bright light, an image will form on the sheet. In fact, the light is so intense that it actually burns into the metal. Developer helps bring out the image. After a quick wash, the sheet is sealed with a special gum for fixing and protection. Because they are so thin, they can be wrapped around cylinders on the press. When ink rollers are applied, the ink is accepted on the image areas of each sheet. The non-image areas will only accept water and repel the ink. For each roller, there is a blanket cylinder. It is these rubber cylinders that actually make contact with the newsprint. Like several other newspapers, the Wairarapa Times Age offers a competitive service in printing flyers and supplements. These can be anything from real estate news to supermarket specials. Besides printing the daily paper, the press also assembles and folds it at high speed. Staff in the delivery room bundle up the daily edition. Most will be delivered to shops where paper boys and girls are waiting to collect them for home deliveries. Newspapers play a vital role in our society. They give us information free from economic or political restraint. They provide employment for thousands of people throughout the country. Every weekday, more than 2.5 million New Zealanders over the age of 10 read a daily paper. In fact, more and more young New Zealanders are discovering how valuable newspapers are. Perhaps you are one of them.